Hey there, and welcome back to my channel Mio Chrome. Today I have a new doll for you, and since I didn't have time to make a Christmas doll, I decided to at least make a winter themed doll. And since I then decided to finish my Valentine's doll first, we're celebrating the last day of winter with this doll together, today on the 19th of March. Also, if I sound a bit weird, it's because I have a bit of a cold, which is actually kind of fitting, right? When I went through my doll stash, my eyes fell upon Spectra and her see-through limbs. She has them because she's a ghost, of course, but they could also be ice. We decide that she's going to be an ice fairy. I wanted a not as sharp looking face mold with a high and elegant nose bridge, so I'm going to replace Spectra's head with one of this absolute mess of an operetta. As always, I start by cutting the hair off. I decided to leave Spectra's hair because I didn't feel like prepping her head too. I let both of them soften up in boiling hot water and take off their heads. Next, I use some needle nose pliers to scrape all of the glued hair together and pull it out of the neck hole. While dealing with this, something started to feel off. Was she this dirty before? When I continued, it was absolutely clear that she was getting dirtier. I think someone tried to dye their hair black with something that was definitely not waterproof, so I had a whole mess to clean up too. Using pure acetone, I removed her face paint and as much of the black paint as I can. Turns out the hair was not the only thing that had been customized. Those lashes are Sharpie too, so they are basically fused with the vinyl now. But this is a problem for later, since the black paint is in every little hair hole and crevice of her head. The stains just keep coming back. I needed acetone baths, dish soap baths and more rubbing with acetone until I could finally not expect any black seeping out of her head anymore. While aggressively squeezing water in and out of the head, I also broke her part line, so I'm fixing it with some waterproof wood glue. Here's her head fully stain-free, finally. By the way, do you like my new ambient light? I can change it to any color I want, so of course today I made it icy blue. I will have to paint the head white anyway, but I'm a bit scared that the black Sharpie lashes will show through, so I tried the trick with acne cream and UV light. Not sure what went wrong, but it only left me with an empty battery. Oh well, the paint will have to do then. I tried to get rid of the mold lines on the body as good as possible. Operetta has these face patterns that I don't want on my doll, so I'm filling those in. I use green stuff because it's more sticky and flexible, in the hopes that it will prevent cracking. My green stuff is pretty old and stiff, but with the help of acetone it can be softened up. I prepare a wire structure for some elf ears. Yes, she's a fairy, but in my universe everyone gets elf ears. When it's all secure, I can start sculpting them with epoxy sculpt. Here I'm adding a little more detail to the ears. When everything is secured, I can sand them as smooth as possible. I also sand the body down a bit where the mold lines are. And now I can spray the head white. Okay, it's not finished. I noticed some imperfections that I will have to fill in and sand down a little more, but first I will move on to her hair. With her white body, I want the secondary color to be an icy light blue. So I'm using this beautiful hair that already has lighter and darker tones mixed into it. It's actually my favorite hair that I own right now, so I hope I don't mess it up. The curls are beautiful, but with our icy theme, I think straight hair is just more fitting. I can just use my hair straightener on a low setting for this. Since these are wefts and I want to reroot, I need to unravel the threads they're sewn together with. This can be quite tricky, especially at the beginning. After a while you will know which ones to pull. I can then pull the single strands out, and like this I have them pre-portioned for my rerooting tool. I paint the scalp a matching color and then one by one push the strands into the holes. Her part line isn't straight, so I adjust it by pushing my own hair holes in. When it's all done, I need to make a clean part and tie it in place. You can also tell that the hair is a bit see-through, so I make the part a bit thicker. I want her to have bangs, so I put a second set of hair strands into the front row of her hair. When that's all dried, it's time for the boil wash to lay the hair flat. With some hair protection, it's now time to reattach the head to the neck and sand down all the parts that weren't smooth enough. With another layer of white primer, we now have a nice and smooth surface to paint a new face. I sketch in the general shape of the eyes first. I want her expression to be cold and more on the serious side, but not unfriendly and more serene. With a reddish pink, I blush her face a bit, but I have to be very careful with that because of the white underlayer. I also sketch in the shape of her eyebrows, straight and elven-like, and to support her calm expression. As you can see, I tried different colors for the eyes and lips. I was thinking to make the lips pink perhaps, and to make the eyes kind of a golden pinkish sunset color, but I couldn't go too crazy with trying stuff out because having the white paint underneath the whole face up won't make it as easy to wipe the face off if it goes wrong. I then also considered making the eyes blue. At some point I realized that I'm just not happy with the eyes. The blue eyes are just too monochrome, and I think beside the white and blue, at least her eyes should have some sort of accent color. But even worse than that to me is the shape of the iris. It's just too big and it doesn't look right to me. So instead of wiping it off, I resort to overpainting it with another layer of white. I then try to make her look off to the side, and instantly I like this a lot better. Now I begin sketching in the eyelashes. In this case, I'm drawing them downturned. For the color, I choose to go more into a pink tone. It's supposed to look a bit iridescent. And also I decide that I want the lips blue. Here I'm darkening the outer circle of the iris. And I'm also refining the lashes with some acrylic paint. I'm starting pretty early with the acrylics this time. I build the lip color up every now and then with more watercolor pencil. Operetta's face mold has really full lips, but I'm underlining her top lip a bit and make it straight so that she doesn't have a cupid's bow. I'm building up blue iridescent glitter paint on the pupil using multiple layers. This way they are becoming reflective, and I really love this effect. After building up the darker colors, I go over the lashes again with a lighter blue to give them some more dimension. Once I'm happy with the face, I also put some iridescent glitter paint on her face. And of course the highlights can't be missing. I choose to also put a little twinkle star as a highlight into her eye this time. Lastly, there were some parts that needed fixing. And we can free her hair. Honestly, my plan was to give her straight bangs, but her hair shaped itself into this side part and I think it looks so cute and suits her so well. I only have to fill up that little bald spot. This dress I found on Pinterest really inspired me to do something similar, so once again I tried to make a pattern myself with the tape method. I'm really trying my best here, but in truth I don't really know what I'm doing. You can see that the dress has a seam in the middle and another one to the left and right of that middle seam. The back is sewn in kind of a V shape. I tried to draw all that in as best as I can and then I cut the pieces out. Next, I put them flat on a piece of sturdier paper and cut that out. And then I glue that on the same paper again, mark the seam allowances and cut out again. I'm only using the sides of the pattern pieces that seem better to me and mirror them so that I have less of a chance of anything coming out crooked. This light blue satin is probably one of my favorite fabrics that I have and it fits her hair perfectly. And yes, I'm using satin again. I seal the edges with PVA glue so that they don't fray. And this is how the front pieces look like next to each other. I'm going to sew all of them together. The cups will have a little dart so that they are a bit rounded and sit better on the boob. And here's the front sewn together and ironed. Onto that I can sew the side pieces. They are overlapping each other, so I mark the middle as a guide where I want to sew on the Velcro. This fits pretty good. I haven't made the pattern for the back part of the skirt yet because I honestly don't know how, but I'm kind of winging it now by somehow sewing this piece on how I imagine it fits. Unfortunately, I couldn't leave the back as one piece because it came out too large, so I cut it in half and adjusted. To make the cups, I sew a thin piece of fabric on them right sides together so that I can turn them over later. Now it's time to sew the cups on the dress, which was extremely hard to do. And for straps I use these rubber bands so that I will be able to take the dress on and off since I want the straps to cross at the back. After taking care of all the seam allowances, the dress looks like this. Since I already chose a spectra for her see-through limbs, I didn't really want to hide them with the shoes. So I use a silver wire to make an elven-like frame for her feet. I mean, since she's made from ice herself, why would she need protection from the cold? As a little detail, I put this tiny snowflake on them too. I do want her hairstyle to be elven-like as well, but I don't want to pull the hair out of her face. I start by braiding the two strands on the side of her face. Once the braid is done, I tie it together by knotting a piece of yarn around it. Even my tiny hair ties won't need much wrapping around for these tiny braids. Then I take some of the top hair and pull it all to one side of the back of her head to make sort of an asymmetrical braid. I separate the outer strands and braid them in a bit later to make them fall into the braid like this. This little piece is going to be another braid underneath the hair that is wrapped around her head. I braid in the outer strands with this one later too. And as a last step, I cut her front hair a bit shorter and give the ends some shape with my tiny straightener. Here you can see some wing shapes that I came up with. I think the more pointy and sharp-edged wing shapes fit the ice theme best, so now I'm sketching my final design onto a piece of paper using a Monster High doll as a guide for the size. I transfer this onto a piece of clear wobbler and cut it out. I very carefully heat it up and give it a bit of a shape. Not too much though, because it is still supposed to look like ice. Then I take some light blue paint and paint in all the veins, and with the dark blue I paint the lower edge of the wing. Now I take the same iridescent blue glitter paint that I used on the eyes and go over all the veins to make them shimmer. I also have this super pretty iridescent glitter powder that I spread over the whole wing, but mostly on the inner side. And after I'm done with that, I coat everything with a layer of UV resin. Now, I don't know how well you can tell on camera, but the wings came out super uneven, and also I think the blue paint yellowed a bit under the UV light. So I'm doing the whole thing again, but this time only using the glittery paint for the veins. And I'm holding the wings in place with these clips rather than making a mess by holding them in my hands. They did turn out much better this time. I want to attach the wings with magnets so that it will be easy to dress and undress the doll. These little blobs of epoxy sculpt will hold in the magnets. I always leave the two corresponding magnets together so that I won't accidentally have them face each other with the wrong side. And then I just push it in so deep that only the first magnet is completely covered in the epoxy. I'll let that cure, and then I drill the holes for the second magnet into her back. Now I push the second magnet in while it's still on the wing. This way it is impossible to do it the wrong way around. I have to be careful not to use too much glue though, we don't want those magnets to stick together. Then as a last step I paint the epoxy on the wings blue and also paint a thin layer of white on the back magnets to hide them better. I conveniently have this little Enchantimals husky lying around, and honestly I find it extremely ugly, so I want to make it into a little snow fox spirit so that our ice fairy has a little familiar. First of all, I need to get rid of this handle thing the Enchantimals animals have. Next I tried to sand off the face, but holy shit, they cemented that paint on those figurines. I thought the Barbie Mini's face was hard to remove, but this is a whole new level. I ended up using my Proxon drill tool, but can you see how hard it comes off even with that? The flower on the head is molded on too, so I pay some extra attention to sanding that flat. When everything is smooth, I fill in the gap at the back and the bottom of the figurine. After priming, our snow fox is now white and we have a blank canvas. I sketch in some foxy eyes with a blue pencil. I actually did that a few times and painted over it again because it somehow always came out looking like a cat. It then dawned on me that it will keep looking like a cat no matter what I paint, as long as it has this flat of a snout. So I take out my epoxy sculpt again to give it a nice pointy and foxy snout. Funny enough, I realized I had an Enchantimals fox lying around here the whole time as well, but whatever, this worked too. After curing, I paint the snout white and now it finally looks like a fox. I draw on the eyes the same way I did before. I make the inner corners very pronounced, like you would also do when doing the fox eye makeup. The pupils are little stars, similar to the doll's eye shines. I love giving pupils unusual shapes if you haven't noticed yet. Foxes have these black areas on the ears, and to replicate that I do the same in blue on this fox. I draw the top half of the eye in a darker blue and the lower half in a lighter blue. For the waterline I use a dark pink. I continue with the blushing. The toes and the top of the snout are all going to be a darker blue. I use pen pastels for a soft transition. I also use that color to give the fox some overall shading. And I give it some hints of little eyebrows, softly shading them in with a flat paintbrush. The eyes are still a bit of a mess right now. I go in with some acrylic paint and a very fine brush to define the lines with a dark blue. Then I fill in the eyeballs with a slightly lighter blue at the top and a lighter blue than that at the bottom. I also paint the tips of the ears with the same blue I used for the eyes. I intentionally want to make those parts sharper than the soft shading on the feet and snout. Now it's time to bring back those pupils with white paint. I decided that the red waterline was too harsh and go over it with a light pink. This also fits better with the color palette of the doll. Here's a little peek of when I did the pupils light blue because I wanted them to look like the doll's pupils with a glitter effect. I quickly realized that this wasn't a good contrast and I'll change it back to white again and then put the glitter paint on the white. And now there's only one thing missing: toe beans! Here's a little ice fairy with her sidekick. I think they're super cute together. I'm already working on my next doll, so if you want to see when it comes out, you can subscribe to my channel. I noticed that all my dolls except for one have been very blue, and might not surprise you that blue is my favorite color. I can tell you now that my next doll is not going to be blue. Also, that one is going to have a lot of body mods, and I've had the theme on my list for the longest time. So I'm really excited to show her to you. Until then, you can talk to me on my Instagram if you want, and I'll hopefully see you again in my next video. Bye!